Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis, and welcome to another Creative Investor Roundtable podcast. I have two amazing guests with me today, Sean and Brittany, who are real estate investors inside the Pittsburgh market. And what a story they have. Now, as everybody knows that watches my channels, I talk about creative. So we'll go into that because that's one of their areas of business. This show that I do has guests that are not just in the real estate space, that today we'll be talking about real estate space, but we are expanding that to be creative ecosystem, which means that we talk about creative financing in real estate, we talk about creative financing in businesses, we talk about creative financing in other cash flowing assets. So if you are watching this on YouTube or whatever you're watching this and you like this, I ask just one request. Please like whatever it is, probably down here, share with your friends, and hopefully they'll be inspired, especially if they're not in real estate, to learn about real estate and maybe even reach out to Sean and Brittany because they're amazing people. With that said, Sean and Brittany, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Dennis.
Thank you so much for coming on. So I'm very excited to have you both on because you both have a unique story how you got into real estate. So can we go back? And how far back are we going to go? Go back to 2012, 2016?
2019.
2019. Okay. So right before COVID started.
2019 was the first one we bought.
Yeah.
Got you. So what were you doing before 2019?
So I worked in the Carpenters Union based out of Pittsburgh. Most of my career, 16 years, I did scaffolding. So that was pretty much all I was doing every day, as much overtime as I could possibly get. More money coming in. Just that's all I had in my mind was overtime, just work as much as possible. Brittany was a nurse.
Yeah, so I've been a registered nurse since 2011. I worked in a local community emergency department. I was ultimately, when we started investing, I would work my way up to a manager in the ER. So our schedules were just really crazy. The hospital didn't close, so there was a lot of times where I was working days, nights, coming home, going back, and we had a little one at home. Our son was only 3, I think, at the time, and we had just had a baby girl. So we wanted a little more family time, and we were trying to figure out the best way to do that and not work constantly.
Yeah, that's a lot of people that are pre-real estate is that they work so many hours, they're in a W-2, and then they get into real estate and they work even more hours for a little while. But I think there is that balance once you get into real estate is that you could be your owner, your own, really controlling your own time. Yes, it's grueling and there's a lot of not great things that people don't like to talk about when it comes to real estate. However, it is still a way that you can at some point start to make your own schedule. So Sean, were you in the union?
Yeah, I was in the Carpenters Union, and most recently, 3 years ago, I was in the Elevator Constructors Union. Another one, I jumped ship. It was a better opportunity at the time. We had just started investing, so I was learning a new trade and everything. So it took a lot on that, but yeah.
In the union that you were in, what was the morale around people that you were working with? Were they excited to come to work? Were they the opposite, felt like really burned down? What was kind of like your vibe and what you were exposed to?
So the mindset in that was basically work as many hours you can, build your pension up, wait till you're 65 to retire, don't touch your money. And everybody was kind of the same. Nobody did anything very much different. Guys did side work. Guys did, they went out on their boat on the lake in the summer. That's about it. Nobody was doing anything super different than anybody else. And it was just one of those things that I was getting to the point where I couldn't just do this for the next 40 years because I got in the union at 18 years old. So I got in young. I got out of there at 34. And it was just, it was just beating me down, to be honest with you. And I just had to get something. And I have nothing bad to say about the union. It got me, to where I am. But it was just the morale around people just wasn't very positive.
Gotcha. So how did you start exploring real estate? Like you're in that environment, right? And I'm sure if you talk to people, maybe they're not open-minded when it comes to that, because on their mindset is they're following this philosophy. So how is your mind shift to say, like, there is other opportunities out there?
So I always wanted to work on houses because it was a contractor. I worked with him in the summers when I was in high school, and I liked working on houses. So we were actually going to have our daughter
driving to the hospital.
We were dropping my son off at my sister's house, and up the street, 2 doors up, was my grandmother's old house, which was with a new owner, but it was for sale. And I was like, you know what? We should just buy this. We know what we're getting into. I know that house inside and out. I was like, we can just rent it and see what happens. And, that gets pushed back because we went and had our daughter. But a couple weeks later, we went to a graduation party where I met a friend of mine who was just he was an entrepreneur, always did his own business, had a landscaping company, just did whatever it took to always, make money. And he had a bunch of rentals. And I talked to him and I said, Eric, how do I do this? And I was like, I want to do this. What do you do? And how can I get into it? He was like, well, why haven't you done it yet? And I had no answer. I was like, you know what? I'm just scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm getting into. I could fix a house, but I don't know anything else about it. He suggested that we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I'm sure a ton of other people have done that. And it honestly changed my life. It's probably the only book that I've ever read. I came home, told her all about it. I was like, you got to read this. I was like, this is it. This is how we're going to change our life and be different than just retire at 65. And I got her to start reading it, and we really started getting momentum moving in 2018 on trying to get this thing set up.
Yeah, so we started looking for properties. We were just reaching out to realtors. We really had no idea where to begin. I called the bank that had our mortgage on our house, and I was like, here's what I want to do. How do I do this? I was just calling people, and I learned about lines of credits, I really didn't even have a great understanding of how mortgages and all that stuff worked. So we found bigger pockets is where we kind of started, and, just started connecting with people on the internet, watching YouTube videos, reading books, all that fun stuff. And eventually we found a house and we just bought it, and we just started doing the thing.
We bought it with the aspect of what's the worst that can happen. If we lose this X amount of money, we're just going back and doing the same thing anyway. So what's the difference? Mm-hmm. And we basically put all our money down, worked on it every single day, got a tenant in there, had no idea what we were doing, freaked out. But everything kind of panned out on that first one. And it was just that jump start to just keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys know that there is, a lot of people credit the book that you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich. Rich Dad and Poor Dad. But that's another book, by the way. And there's actually a book for kids, which actually is the same book, and it's the kids' version. So highly recommend that. I don't know if you got a chance to read it to your kids. I actually spend time reading it with my son, my oldest son, and he definitely sees things differently. So what you have in kids now, how are you essentially making them more involved? Because whenever people have kids, they sometimes want to impart their understanding and their knowledge onto their kids, because that's another avenue in their pocket. For example, for me, when I was in high school, my mom was a very active real estate agent, and she told me that you can still do whatever you want to do, but I have this skill, and that's real estate. And as long as that you have that as your tool belt, you can never go wrong in life. That's why I kept my license active since '99, even though I was in and out of real estate. But I'm just curious, from your perspective, you obviously, from what you're saying, did not come from a real estate family. How are you looking to change things when it comes to your children and the real estate space?
So we bring our kids everywhere with us. Like we bring them to houses. My son is 7. He has been helping Sean do floors and sweep it up since we started, literally since he was.
He has his own little paycheck. It's in our thing. And
Yeah.
he buys cards, and he tries to get like Steelers and stuff and his games and everything. So like he really enjoys it.
Yeah. So we kind of, I mean, he's only 7, so we don't try to make it too complicated so that it's not exciting, So we asked him one day, we had to open a new LLC to put new properties into, and we let him name it, and we let him take $20 out of his piggy bank and invest it with us. And we have him sign a little contract, and every month he gets $2 in his account from that $20. So we're kind of showing him like, if you invest this, you're going to get that back one day, but you're getting this $2 every single month. And he thinks it's like the coolest thing ever to get his little bank statement every month. But, they come with us. Sometimes they don't want to, but we're kind of in the same mindset. We want them to be able to do whatever they want to do, but have this knowledge to live on so that they can do what they want to do. Not that they have to follow in our footsteps, but they at least will understand how to let their money work for them so they can enjoy life and do the things they want.
Yeah, a lot of investors talk about, various even speakers talk about, if I go back 20 years, what would I say to my younger self? And that's why I think everybody's sort of like failing to potentially do that, and not you all, the both of you, but there are parents that, they really just work in the real estate space, and they don't get their children involved. And I always say that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have to follow your footsteps, but at some point in their life, right, it's going to kind of come back to them potentially. And it's, once again, it's going to be a tool belt in their toolbox. Going back to Rich Dad and Poor Dad. I read the book, right? I read the book 3 times. And in all honesty, if I was not in the real estate family, I don't know if I would make that transition to real estate. And that's where, a lot of people talk about how that book really changed their mindset. I'm just curious, what part of the book was that for you that made you look at things differently?
The hourly worker is the most taxed person that there is. So where Poor Dad worked his life, worked every minute he could, worked his life away, saved up, had a pension, and then it all come crashing down whenever the company sells and goes overseas. Where Poor Dad has employees, pays less in taxes, does kind of what he wants, and has all these assets that he's leaving basically for his children down the road. That's where it was, because while I want to enjoy everything, I want my children to be set for the future. That's more what I care about than anything for myself. I'll work as much as I can. I'll make sure these properties that we do have are running smoothly, so that they can enjoy it down the road. That's what it means most to me.
Gotcha. So we're in 2019, right? And you read the book, 2018, 2019 timeframe. You read the book. You both are getting somewhat excited about it. You talk about the one opportunity you have. Brittany, as far as your workplace, was there conversation going on around real estate, or did you keep it more to yourself as you started to kind of get that exciting thing in your belly? There's people that can sometimes come into work and they try to communicate with real estate, and people are going to be like, oh yeah, I have a friend that's a slumlord. You're like, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah. So we really didn't talk about it too much at first. Like we kind of kept it to ourselves, like obviously close family and friends. Everyone was always supportive, but they were always kind of like, well, are you sure you want to do that? And it's always like the what ifs. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it was kind of one of those things where we really didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. So we didn't want to talk about it too much, I think, in case it didn't work out. And then as time has gone on, like the first year we bought 3 houses, I think. And, we ended up being busier and we weren't always available to do the things we normally did. And that's kind of how we got, talking about it more with other people, with our friends. Because on the weekends, we weren't really out having fun. We were working on a house. So as far as work goes, it's kind of the same. I didn't really know anyone that did this. So when I talked about it, they were like, oh, that's cool, but it wasn't really something they wanted to sit and have a 3-hour conversation about either, like where I could probably sit and talk to you all night. So, that was one thing that we lacked for a while, was having other people to talk to that understood what we were going through.
Yeah. And I think, when it comes to this niche, what we call real estate, and real estate has a lot of different areas in it. Everybody has an uncle that lost money in real estate. Everybody has um, a brother, a sister, and so forth that lost money in real estate. And whenever you talk to people that are not in that space and they don't really have, I really don't like saying abundance mindset, but to some extent, maybe it is. Maybe I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to characterize everybody that if you're not in real estate, you don't have an abundance mindset. There's a lot of different opportunities out there besides real estate, and there's a lot of ventures out there besides real estate. Real estate is just another asset class. But when it comes to your journey in real estate, when did you start to see that your job is impacting your growth? And was that shortly after you read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Did you have some properties under your belt before you started to get that process or mindset?
Yeah, I know what you're asking. I would say probably after the first year. Like the first year was kind of confusing. We were really just getting our feet wet. And then, once we got into the second year, we got more confident in what we were doing. And that's when I think I really saw the potential in it.
Yeah, we did a full rehab our second year, and it appraised higher than we thought. And we took our time. It was right when COVID hit too. So like I was doing everything by myself, and I couldn't get anybody to come over because they were like, stay in, and you couldn't do anything. So everything I did was like lonely nights, and just I was there till midnight, and then going to work in the morning. And I was like, all right, whatever, let's see. And then our appraisal came back, and like it was higher than we thought, and like it was like, we can do this. If I could do this by myself, we can do this and grow a team, and over the next couple of years, like really get this moving. And then we ended up buying 3 more later in that year after that one, and that was during COVID too. So everything was different then, and we were just growing, and we would talk to friends and family, and they would be like, "Oh, how are you doing this? Like, how are you making any of this happen?" So that's kind of whenever we started transitioning to like, maybe we can leave this all behind and do this on our own.
Yeah, I mean, during 2020, whenever you went to a store, everybody looked like everybody like they were aliens, right? And obviously, I don't want to get political here, but there was definitely a fear factor as far as what was going on, right? So I think it gave a lot of people to sort of pause and see what's going on with their lives. Because I mean, for me, I was essentially in the same situation as a lot of people. I've been learning real estate as far as wholesaling since 2012. And in 2012, I actually went into a title company where I did business prior to that. And there was a group called Clever Investors back then. I was actually the founding member. And I actually tried to wholesale a property, and they looked at me like I had 2 heads. They're like, we don't do that. This is Jersey. You have to close on the property. You can't assign. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's not Florida. But still, this guy in Arizona is saying that it's possible. I'm like, no. So in my area of Jersey, which is one of the most restricted areas in the country after California, in 2020, I kind of came to that realization like, oh my God, right? It's almost kind of like a pause and saying it's either now or never, right? And I'm curious if you both had that same kind of discovery, or maybe your approach was a little different. Just want to get your thoughts on it.
So I would say for me, 2020 is kind of when I really I sort of took the lead between the two of us in the real estate, everything. I got real active, like, we couldn't go anywhere and we couldn't go to local meetups. So I started doing a lot of online meetups just to network with people, because at this point in time, Sean was traveling a lot. He was like going to Erie, which is like 3 hours from us, working 12-hour days. And so I didn't really have a choice. I kind of had to take on, making the decisions and things, because he just wasn't available. And when he was exhausted. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's when I found another couple that was doing creative financing, and I always like heard about it, learned about it, but I didn't understand it. And I asked if I could come work with them. And that kind of really propelled me. I learned so many different things by working with them, and they really gave me a lot of confidence in myself that I could do this and that I was better at a lot of things than I guess I realized myself. And so I think that from that year for me was really when I really like stepped up to the plate and learned a lot and kind of got things moving forward with us a little bit.
Well, you're a badass. That's why. So let me kind of go on that for a little bit. How did you find that opportunity? Was it just something that you came across? Did you go and find this couple? How did that like manifest? Because a lot of times people, that I talk to a lot of people, they're sort of like, well, I'm sitting on the bench and the opportunity's not going to just drop on me. I'm like, well, if they're walking and they slip potentially, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious if, because a lot of our audience here potentially are people that are still in that mindset where, their uncle or somebody else telling them that it's not a good idea to get into real estate. So can you talk a little bit about how you were able to make that connection, especially with you not being able to go anywhere?
Yeah. So I met these guys through Instagram, actually. I got real active on there because I just wanted to make friends like with other investors, and I just didn't know a lot. So I got on Instagram and I just started finding people, and I was doing like a meetup, like a virtual meetup, like what we do. And this couple came on and they started talking all about seller financing, creative financing. And I was like, I want to learn this. Like, I want to know how to do this. And I messaged them and I was like, hey, like, I loved what you talked about. I would love the opportunity to talk with you. And we did a virtual Zoom with them. He was in Erie, and we just kind of picked their brains a little bit. And the next, like that following week, they posted something about looking for help. So I messaged them. I was like, hey, I don't know what you need help with, but I want to learn what you're doing. So can I come work for you? And I was like their first real kind of employee. They had 2 other employees that were local to their area, but I was in a completely different state. They were in New York. And I like interviewed with them, and we just they were like, okay, let's give it a shot. And it just took off from there. So I just, I asked them, how can I help you? Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I can do. How can I be a part of what you're doing and learn what you're doing? And that's what I encourage a lot of people now when they come to us asking how to get started. I say, here's what I'm looking for. Go find it for me. If you do, I'll pay you and I'll teach you how to do it. So for newer people that are trying to get started, I think that's a great way. Offer to, join in and see how you can be beneficial to someone else.
There's a term that says you're only a conversation from your next success story. I mean, this is a living proof. So were you working at the hospital at the time that you were doing that? Because I mean, during COVID, everybody was working at the hospital, if you weren't anywhere in medical field.
Oh yeah. I was still working. I was texting sellers in between my whatever time I had. I was working at the hospital, and we were just working nonstop. But, once you get that drive in you, I think that's, like they were like, we want to get 1 deal a month or 2 deals a month, or whatever it was. I was like, all right, I'm getting 2 deals a month, and I'm not stopping until I do. And that ended up happening. And then about a year or so into it, they were like, we really took off, and they were like, what can we do to get you to leave your job and come work with us full time? And so in 2021, that's when I made the transition. I left the hospital and I went work with them full time.
Gotcha. That is amazing. So when it comes to your situation, right, at that time, and you started working for them, what kind of skills did you need to have? Like, I mean, or was it just simply clerical work? And did you have to like learn a job? Did they give you some kind of training? Like, how did that essentially play out?
So they were really they weren't starting out in real estate, but they were starting to grow a team. So it was kind of like a learning curve with both of us, but I mainly did acquisitions. So I was talking with new leads. I was finding new leads myself, and I was bringing them to, the team. And the guy was like an amazing closer. He was a car salesman, and he really understood creative financing. He did Ron LeGrand's program and however long ago. And I listened to him. I got on every call with him, with every seller. And I learned, similar to what I kind of do with Pace now. Like I do with everyone that has that skill set. I listen to how they talk to people. I listen to how they do rebuttals. And then after a while, I just kind of started, instead of getting him on a closing call, I just started closing it myself. And then they kind of helped build up that confidence in myself that I could do it. And I didn't realize I was good at that until I just kind of started closing deals.
Got you. And when it comes to a closer role, what kind of skills should somebody possess if they want to be a closer? And do you think those skills can be learned over time? If, let's say, they are terrified talking to anybody, they are literally afraid of their shadows, can they still be a closer?
Absolutely. I hated talking to people. Like, it's so funny that I've transitioned into this role because it's never something I thought I would do. I've never been like a good salesy kind of person. But I think being a nurse and dealing with people in a lot of different situations, I developed a good way of dealing, talking with people, listening to people. So I think that's probably maybe what kind of helped me succeed in that, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that like working with them gave Britt like a different type of confidence in herself. They changed her completely, like the way she was, because we started Instagram when we first started investing just to like meet people and to like take our journey and show everybody. And we got to 100 followers and we like popped champagne. We were so excited, but we didn't tell like our friends and family like anything that like we didn't have this Instagram. Like they didn't know anything about it, and like it was very hush hush. And like I remember she did a podcast and I text like our friends and she was like, "Oh my God, don't do that. I'm so embarrassed. Please don't tell anybody." And now, like you talk about your uncle and your dad who told you not to buy. They have a horror story in real estate. Everybody has that, but at the same time, like people like would rather see you fail than succeed. So like you have to put yourself out there and be more vocal, and that's how you're going to build relationships. Like you said, a conversation away, because you never know who you're going to talk to. If you're putting your story out there, you're going to show people like what you're doing, and they're going to be interested. There's somebody in Texas right now that's going to be like, I'm cheering for you guys. Good job. Whenever somebody that I know isn't going to say anything. So like they gave her so much more confidence to just do what she's doing and lead. And it really showed over a course of a year. She changed completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that you mentioned that you guys kept it away from friends and family because maybe felt like I am sort of like not really there yet, and maybe what happens if I fail? Like I don't want people to know. So it's funny how our essentially as human beings we rather go out there and fail in front of strangers versus our own family and friends, because in reality is we're not going to be judged by strangers, and if we are, we don't really care. They're strangers to us, right? Is that how you were looking at it, Brittany?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I was just like, like he said, like people always want to see you fail, and it's someone's more willing to point that out than, you do 100 things right, but that one thing you do wrong, it's like, oh, told you so, or whatever. And I wanted to stay focused on the good parts of it and not let that negativity, all the questions, why are you doing this? Why is this and that? I didn't want to deal with that. I just wanted to stay focused and stay where I'm at. And I knew bringing everyone else in and getting their opinions would just, bring me down. And I just didn't want it around me.
Gotcha. So, Sean, as Brittany is becoming a rising star at this point, she's getting involved with an investor. Are you still working your W-2? What are you doing in the midst of all this time that she is growing her career?
So, end of 2020, I started my new career. I started doing that. So I had to like learn all new different stuff. I had to go back to school for things, training, this and that. So my entire focus, like as we were still in real estate, my entire focus was doing that and getting better every day at that, where she took on a whole new role in just real estate. Like she's 50 yards ahead of me on everything, and I'm just trying to catch up. Like I understand it, but she's like, oh, we're on to the next thing already. So she's taken such a bigger role on everything that she's the head of like our whole real estate empire that we're trying to build. And I'm just trying to make sure everything's running correctly and smoothly and pick up all the pieces at the end, like fixing whatever needs done at our properties. I make calls. I get things set up as much as I can. But she's definitely the star in the company here.
So, Brittany, when did you start to see that your nursing job was starting to become an issue, and you transitioned out of that at some point? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think it was just sort of a combination of our life, like I think when you have kids, someone's always going to be more of like the set schedule kind of person, and that's always been Sean. And I've always had to be able to be flexible because, things come up, and it's just is what it is. And I love nursing. I love being a nurse, but it's just all the behind the scenes, the administrative stuff, and it was like dragging me down, and I just didn't enjoy it anymore because, it wasn't running the way it should be. And I was like, I'm trading my time for money. I'm never going to make any more money, whether I'm the best nurse there is or whether some nurses I work with literally would do the bare minimum every day. And I just, I was like, I know if I put all my effort into this, that I can make this something really big for us and make it work for our family. And I just knew, I had to devote more time to that than anything else if I wanted it to be successful. So, it just had to happen, and I'm happy that it did, because I could make all the changes I want at the hospital, but I'm only one person. And with us, I have full control over, not everything, but most things in our business.
So you bet on yourself, right? And that is huge. And I think that does take a mindset evolution, I would say, to some extent, right? Because a lot of times and this is something that actually I was talking to someone recently. I don't want to mention names here, stuff like that. Some people know this person, some people know not. Maybe somebody's wearing a hat that resembles that person. But anyway, when it comes to a W-2 job, what I really understand is that you don't need to do lead generation, right? You basically are working for somebody, and the business comes to you. You just have to service that business, whatever business that you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are a business owner, it sort of has that mindset of whatever you catch or kill, you eat, right? And you constantly have to do that every day, right? So as an entrepreneur, as you both are now, how did that transition really hit both of you? And essentially, when did you both come to that and really sort of burn all the boats and get out of the non-real estate space and got into real estate space?
I'll tell you.
It was last year, basically. It was constantly going into work and everybody telling me everything that I was doing wrong and that I was crazy to be in real estate, and that this is the greatest pension and the greatest annuity, and the benefits are so much better than you're ever going to get. And I'm just like, if this is the best I got, like, this sucks. And everybody, like, nobody was like cheering for you at work. They're just kind of like, oh, that's what you do on the side. And, cool, good for you. And I couldn't be around it. So like we started a meetup, my local meetup that we do, that we, it's my favorite day of the month. Like, I can't wait to be around like-minded people that want to speak about it. And that's kind of what was like my breaking point. I was just like, I'm not doing what I want to do. Like, I'm bored at work. Nothing excites me. Like, I don't wake up and like, all right, let's go fix an escalator.
Yeah. He was very unhappy. And I think it was just one of those things where the mindset shifted to, what's the point of doing all of this if you're not happy and you're not enjoying your life? And we were like, there's always a way to make more money, but you can't get back time. And he'd come home every day exhausted and miserable. And I was like, we know what we're doing. And I think it was the end of summer last year is when he kind of really was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this rest of my life.
I was on swing shifts. So I worked second and third shift all summer and fall. And like winter finally came and I could go on daylight. And they were like, oh, we're going to go month to month. So then I went back to second shift and I was like, you know what? screw this, because you don't care about what I care about. Like I'm just a number. So like I can bitch all I want and say, oh, I can't do it. But at the end of the day, you'll just replace me like it's nothing. So I wanted to spend time with my kids and see my kids and see them growing up. And I was just like, this ain't the way to do it. I need to get out of here. And she wasn't on board with she was on board with it, but she was like, wait till this deal closes. Cool. So we had a hotel that we were closing. It was like a couple of weeks away. And I was like, you know what, Britt, F that. I'm done today. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. Called my superintendent, said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. He was like, oh, that's tough to hear. And I was like, it's been a while. Like this is a long time coming. And that was the end of it. I decided in December that I was quitting, and then I quit in January 27th. And I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll figure it out. If I can't figure it out, I'll go back to doing what I was doing and be miserable again.
So did you wake up the day after and was like, oh my God,
I walked out.
What did I do?
I remember walking out because I worked the end of the shift, and I remember walking out and just like the air was different. The sun rays, like I could see them like through the sky. Everything was different that day. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Don't get me wrong. There's tough days, but if anybody's looking to quit their job and they're in any kind of situation, there's no right time. Just do it and figure it out. Yes. If you can't figure it out, you can go back to doing exactly what you're doing. Trust me, you can get a job doing anything right now.
Yeah, you fell forward. That's really how life works. I think anybody who's a real estate investor, any kind of investor, a lot of times you do have plans, but then, it just something happens and your plan gets completely torpedoed. And then you're like, oh my God, what did I do this for? Whenever people quit their jobs and stuff like that, I think about a show called The Office, and Michael quitting his job and walking out and being in bathrobe the next day. And he's all excited. And then he's like, uh-oh, I have to go now, find business.
Oh, that first month was definitely a major roller coaster.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, what am I doing? I got up, got the kids on the bus. I'm like, now what? What do we do all day?
Right. So I mean, how did you start to time manage effectively? Is that something that you're good at, or is that something that Brittany is better at?
So it depends. So with multiple tasks, Britt might be a little bit better, but a task that like needs done like specifically, that's all me. Like I can, on a remodel on a house, I can plan it on what needs done on a single house. Now, when we get like 4 houses that we have going right now, I only have one set of tools. So I'm like in 50 different places. So multiple tasks she's better at. One specific one I can do pretty well. Does that make sense?
Sean's more detailed, where I'm like organized chaos. Like I can handle a lot of different things, but I don't want to know every little like minuscule detail. Like I don't care. Just here's what I need. I need this for this, this for this, this for this. Move on. And he's very like detail oriented on stuff. So it's a good thing, and it makes us clash sometimes though too.
Yeah. She's like, why is it not done yet? And I'm like, well, the plumbing just blew a hole through the wall, and I got to fix that now. So.
The stories of couples working together. I mean, that's why they're called a power couple, right? Because you need power to keep it together.
Yes, definitely.
A lot of glue.
Indeed. So what does your portfolio look like today?
So we currently have, I think, 15 long-term rentals. They're all mainly single families. One's a duplex. We have one short-term rental, which we are at right now. It's at a ski resort, which is why there's a big sled behind us. And we do a little bit of wholesaling. Not very many, but if something comes along, we're actually wholesaling a deal right now in Myrtle Beach.
2 creative deals we should be closing this week. Well,
yes,
just the upcoming week.
Yes. And then we had one that we wholesaled that we're selling. So that we're about 15, 16 doors, I guess, right now.
And how long did that take you to get to?
Well, we closed on our first one January 2019. We did about 3 to 4 houses a year every year until this year, and then this year we just kind of went full steam ahead, and I think we bought 7 this year.
Yeah, we did 3 our first, 4 our second, and then we bought this place, And we took like a whole year off trying to perfect like the Airbnb thing and trying to make sure we got all 5-star reviews and making sure the place is kept and we had all the amenities that everybody wanted. And then we didn't start buying again until end of 2022. We bought one, and then this year after I quit, we bought 7, I think.
Yeah, we were burned out. We were doing a lot ourselves. Like we were doing everything ourselves. And then I think once we bought our short-term rental is kind of, we took a break and we were like, okay, like if we're going to keep doing this, managing the ones we do have and buying more, we got to hire out more things and delegate more things out. And so the last 2 years has really been growing our team, bringing some more people on to help with stuff. Because we were just so burned out. Like we'd finish one house, we'd do everything ourselves, and then we'd move right on to the next one and the next one. And it just, that was when we were still working. So we needed to reorganize our business based on where we were at.
Very cool. So as far as you acquiring all these properties, did you use all of your money? Did you have anybody help you with capital?
We haven't used our own money in a few years. We use a combination. This year is the first year we've used a private money lender. We've not used one until this year. Prior to this, we did everything using lines of credit because where we buy in Pittsburgh, most of our properties all in are under $100,000. We're usually probably between $30,000 to like $70,000 purchase.
The ones that are going to watch this in California, they're going to have a pin drop.
Yeah. But with saying that, we know our market. Like people aren't going to buy where we're going to buy because they don't know the streets like we know the streets that we're going up and down. I mean, we were both born and raised where we're buying. So it's a lower income community. There are very good people in these communities and they still need good housing.
Mm-hmm. So, but we basically use the BRRRR method for pretty much everything. So we would use our lines of credit, and now over time that our properties have appreciated, we've consolidated, we've been able to pay some off and add them as lines of credit. So we have a large amount that we can work with. So we use them to buy, rehab, refinance, and then we just pay them back, keep recycling them. And then this year when we started buying at a more rapid pace and neither of us had a W-2, I was like, okay, we need to have some more options. And that's actually this past year I hired a coach and she connected me with some private money lenders. And then with that, that's just so relationship based. Like I did a hard money loan this year and it was ridiculous. I was like, I'll never do that again. Just the cost of it is just so insane. So now I've really been working this year on developing relationships. I found a lady that is very into women run businesses. Not that we're woman run, but she's very supportive of women and she does private lending. And, she actually she's out of state. She made a trip to Pittsburgh to come visit us. I took her around. I showed her our properties. I showed her how we work, gave her some samples of some renovations that we've done. And she's really supportive of us. So she's one of our lenders. And then I've met a lot of people in the sub-2 community that also, are interested in lending. So I'm sort of getting into that as we want to buy more rapidly. But for the most part, we're either using that, we're doing some creative. We did a 0% seller finance deal this year. That's the one we're wholesaling. And then we still use the BRRRR. It still works for us.
So this is a creative podcast, right? And it was amazing that we talked about your story and leading up to creative. So let's talk a little bit about your creative deal. Can you tell us a little bit more how you acquired it and the zero down? Everybody's looking like, ooh, I want to hear the nuggets. How did you acquire the deal for zero down?
Sure. So when I worked with the other couple, Jen and Joe, they mainly only did creative. So I was essentially like, we were doing about 5 to 10 deals a month. I was their main closer. So I was on the phone constantly and our primary focus was creative deals. So I got really good at negotiating them. When we started buying this year, I met a wholesaler who took the time to really get to know us, know our buy box and whatever else. And we just developed a very great relationship. And he didn't have a lot of buyers in my particular area. And he's north of our city and we're south. So we're about hour and a half, 2 hours from him. So we kind of got into we go and do some of his we
do his walkthroughs, take pictures.
Like where his boots on the ground.
We're the first offer. we're going to go through and tell them kind of what it's worth if we're interested. And if not, here's the pictures and send us the next one. And we're happy to move on.
So anyways, so I invited him to come speak at one of our meetups just about wholesaling and everything else. And we kind of sat down and we're talking. And I said, if you ever come across anything, because he wasn't doing anything creative, it was strictly cash. I said, if you ever come across anything where you have a really motivated seller, they want too much money, and the house is in decent shape, I'd love to work together and see if I can maybe negotiate something creative and, pay you guys a fee. And he was like, actually, I have one. It was in a wonderful school district, highly desirable. They really needed to sell. They owned it free and clear, but they were set on their price and they weren't budging. And I said, would you be open? We had developed a relationship, but we still were very new to each other. And he had some business partners that didn't know who the heck we were. And I said, would you be open to me talking to the seller with you guys on the phone so you can hear everything that's happening? And, whatever we work out, I'll pay you guys a fee. Like, I'm cool with that. And so we set up a call with me, his partner, the seller, and I basically just talked through, I listened to her, what her needs were. And she was very set on that price and she wanted to buy a new car. Her husband is ill, he's having some health issues. And all they really cared about was getting their price and being able to buy a car. So I agreed to pay their price that they needed, which was still under market value. It was higher what it made sense for cash, but it was a decent price. And I agreed to give them, a decent down payment. I think we gave them $30,000 down and we bought it for $150,000. And I said, I'm going to make you principal only payments until I cash you out. And I think we did a 6-year term. And I said, I'm not going to make you your first payment. I'm going to give you your down payment, but I'm not going to make your first payment for 90 days. So I had 3 months with no payments. And then because I was giving them the down payment, our initial exit strategy was going to be a lease option. So my plan essentially was to collect a down payment from a tenant buyer, pay off, the money we funded for the down payment, and then, just straight cash flow from there. So I said, because I'm giving you this money down, I'm going to make you a lower monthly payment for the first year. And we came to $300 a month, 0% interest, year one, 90 days till first payment. And then after year one was done, I moved it up to $500 a month. And, we ended up not actually finding a tenant buyer. We ended up actually selling it, which we were supposed to close today, but that didn't happen. We had a delay. So I reached out to them, knowing their situation, kind of knowing where they're at. And I said, hey, we're selling the house sooner than we had thought, being that we still have technically 5 years or 6 years left on this loan. And you've already worked with us once. Would you be open to continuing to work with us? And we owed them a balance, I think, of $120,000. I said, I'll give you, you'll get your money, keep $20,000, go do something fun, and then give me back that $100,000, and I'll give you back $110,000 in 6 years. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So now what's going to happen is once we sell this place, we're going to close on it. They're going to get their money. They're going to take their $20,000 and they're taking a vacation. They already told me all about it. And they're going to reinvest their $100,000 into us. And we're going to make them principal only payments for the remaining term. And then pay them out $110,000 in full at the end. So broken down, it comes out to like 1.7% or something like that. But I'm paying down principal only during that time. And I'm only paying them a $400 a month payment. So that's going to really help me. I'm going to put it on another property and we'll cash flow really good on it.
Amazing. A lot of times people ask me, creative financing, do I just go into a deal with creative financing? And you clearly just illustrated, no, you don't. Just like with anything, creative financing, everyone, it's a toolbox. It's a tool in your toolbox. And you never technically want to start with an opportunity or a deal where you go into creative, because a lot of times when you do that, I think there might be some other bunnies to uncover. But from your perspective, if you did not really understand creative financing, could this deal been acquired?
If I didn't know seller financing, I probably wouldn't have even known that was an option. And I probably would have just passed on it, honestly. Yeah. But I would say, when it comes to like the bunnies, like, you say, it's all you're doing is solving a problem. If you can listen to someone and learn what their problem is and come up with a solution to help them out of their problem, that's what the deal is. It's not, it really doesn't have anything to do with real estate. It's about solving people's problems. And, that's what we did for these guys. And they're very grateful. And we literally text all the time, and she tells me what's going on in her life. And, that's how we like to do business, is developing those relationships with people. And even now, when we go look at a house, all of our deals come from referrals. We don't even do any paid advertising aside from a local mail, like a local ad. I tell everyone, I say, I'm going to come look at the house. I'm going to give you a couple different options. I usually do a cash offer, a short-term financing offer, and a long-term financing offer. And I say, I'm going to give you a couple different options. If any of these work for you, that's great. If they don't, that's okay too. We're going to point you in the direction of who can help you. And I think just people knowing that, we're out there to help them, whether or not it benefits us or not, is why we get a lot of the deals that we do, because they appreciate that we're listening to them.
Awesome. Real estate agents, if you're watching this, make sure you reach out to, and you're in the Pittsburgh tri-state area, make sure you reach out to Sean and Brittany. And in case they need to get a hold of you, what's the best way to contact you?
I would say text us. Text is always the best. Or on social media. I'm Brittany K_REI.
Sean Krisnerick, Facebook, Instagram, same thing.
Yeah, and Brittany Krisnerick, Facebook. Our email, I don't know if you want me to type it out for you, or
I mean, you could just say it or type it out. I mean, we could definitely put it into show notes.
Okay. Yeah, Brittany at Trigan Properties, TRIGAN Properties.com.
Very cool. So my other question for both of you is, people that are watching this, right, and where you're at, and you came along in 4+ years, 3+4 years, they're saying like, oh my God, I cannot do this. They're not saying something. They probably have a rich uncle or something that's funding all of this. What do you say to those people that look at these things and potentially never start because of their own mindset issues?
I think you need to figure out why you're doing it, because you're going to have a lot of hard days and hard nights. And if you don't have that long-term why in your mind, you're never going to get it done. And if you're waiting for the right time, like Sean said, there's never going to be one. You have to take action, figure out the absolute worst case scenario. And if you can figure out a way to get out of that worst case scenario, that's probably not going to happen. Then you just need to do it. And the first house we bought taught us everything. I mean, we screwed up a lot. We didn't do anything perfect, but that, I made notes and I said, okay, next house, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And, we still make mistakes. So
Take the first jump. I mean, that's it. Buy the first house, make your first phone call, do your first deal. That's all it takes. After that, everything will fall into place. I mean, you'll figure it out. It's not that hard. And we definitely don't have a rich uncle. We're from a very, very low income place. You work until you die. That's where we come from.
Not anymore. So, Sean and Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Before we wrap up, I do have 3 questions to ask you, random trivia questions. If you can sit down and have dinner with somebody that's dead or alive, who would it be and why?
you gotta start. I don't know. Like a famous person or like someone you know?
I mean, probably somebody that's famous. It could be, anybody. It could be a grandparents.
Yeah. I mean, for me, just thinking that would definitely be my grandma, because she loved real estate and we didn't get into it until after she passed away. And I just know, like, if she knew we were doing this now, she would be like my right-hand man all the time. So I would definitely say her.
Awesome.
I don't know about you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a tough one. I would say, honestly, because I just seen somebody ask this question, and they said that it was between Elon Musk or Mr. Beast, and they chose Mr. Beast. And I feel like me and my son watch all his videos on YouTube, and just the way he does stuff is very interesting, the way his mind works, because he didn't do anything different from his YouTube videos. He did the same YouTube, but he subtitled over top of it in different languages and put them in different countries. and made millions and millions of more dollars just by doing that, and just having that mindset of how you could just think of something like that easy to not do anything different, just subtitle over it, and that's pretty cool. I would like to have somebody like sit down with him and just pick his brain for a little bit.
That's a
Maybe.
good one.
Mr. Beast, if you're watching, make sure you reach out to Sean.
My son, if we go anywhere, we're getting a Mr. Beast bar every time. I guarantee that.
Second question: if you can travel anywhere in the world, where would that be? That you haven't been to yet?
Oh my gosh. I would say at this moment in my life, I would go to the Philippines. This year I hired my first virtual assistant, Joy. She is like my freaking best friend ever. I love her so much. And by talking with her so often, I've learned so much about the culture there, and something I never would have learned. And I just think it would be so cool to go there and meet her and her family.
Yeah, I would go to Croatia. That's where my family's from. We had our Krasnarek, the village. We had a whole village that was ours. It was destroyed during World War II. My cousin actually visited there, drove up the driveway, like it's a long gravel road, and they were like Krasnarek, and they didn't speak English. They were like yeah, it's us, and it was our family. They never spoke to each other, never knew each other, and that's where I would probably want to go for sure. See that.
Question number 3. Not gonna be a tough one, I promise. Maybe it will be. If you can possess any superpower that will do good, what would that be?
What do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of superpowers.
I know. I don't know. What's yours, Dennis?
Having invisible is one, but the second the second one is being able to communicate to people that have any kind of needs that we sometimes don't really understand or see. There's a lot of people that are essentially going through suicidal thoughts, and you never know that happens. So if I can have those kind of powers where I can kind of just say, okay, I need to have a conversation with that person, that would be something that I would love to have.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
I want to say like reading people's minds, but then that kind of scares me too. But I feel like if I could, you could, so many people, like you said, don't say what they really need or mean or think. And I think that would be a cool superpower to have.
Yeah, I'd say fly.
Ooh.
Super cool to fly.
Yeah.
You could be in a ton of different places all very quickly and help more people. You know what I mean? Go and sign the paperwork for a sub-2 deal.
Yeah. And he could just carry me with him. So
Yeah,
I'll just take his,
Yeah,
I'll just
and
piggyback on that.
she's reading everybody's mind, so we know where to go.
Very soon you're going to have a thing called Magic Carpet that's going to fly somewhere. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
That's it.
Sean, Brittany, thank you so much for spending this hour. And I learned so much about both of you. You are such go-givers. You have went through a lot of obstacles, and thanks a lot for sharing your journey today. If you're watching this, make sure you share, reach out to Sean and Brittany. And like I said, anywhere here, share, like this video. And I love to do this, continue doing these. But if you don't share it, I don't know if I can do them. So please share it. Until next time, this is Dennis with Creative Investor Roundtable. My special guest, Sean and Brittany, signing off. Thank you for everybody for joining.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thanks.